Good morning.
Hi!
It was on so they could hear you.
I don't shush very much when I'm with Aaron. Poor Aaron.
Because I was trying to hurry up.
Yeah, poor Aaron has to deal with just the all the day. Fortunately, I think she's tuned me out by now. But good morning. Welcome to W Army Live. This is the ever Aaron Burns. And I am ever the, I can't shush, Christine Surratt, office manager. Tech professional realtor, Miss Erin, and I'm glad y'all could make it. I hope it wasn't too long of a drive. A lot of things have been going on. Oh, I did an arm wave. Oh, see, I can see me. This is bad. Okay, focusing. First is the Carl update. He made it home last night. It took two people to kind of make sure he made it into the house safely, especially with all the snow and ice. But he is home. He's got lots of physical therapy on the horizon. But we have high hopes that he'll make a full recovery. But he's made it very clear, and his wife, Mom, has made very clear that he is staying home and enjoying home for a few weeks. 90 plus days in the hospital. He wants to be home for a while. And that is my bias as well. It's a hard thing to be in the hospital, let alone fighting all these illnesses, and even harder to watch I think it's pretty darn hard to watch your spouse go through it. And it's just all part of it. And so them being home, I'll let them determine when people can visit them and bring stuff. I'm going to let them, at a minimum, have 2 weeks just to be home. But you're welcome to contact me and see if we can coordinate something in the future. But let's get on to today's topic before I talk your ear off about Carl. We could talk all day about Carl. He's lived a heck of a life. In the meantime, today's topic is whether you should stay or you should move. A lot of people let their wants rule. And in my bias, I think it needs to be a balance of finding your wants and your needs and picking where your priorities really are, or maybe not picking, but acknowledging where your priorities are. And so, for instance, I had a client not too long ago that wanted another house. In hindsight, it could have probably been done differently. They could have waited a little bit longer. But for at least the wife, it wasn't a want, it was also a need. They had a little 2-3 bedroom house with 3 estates worth of stuff in it because grandma died, then her mom died, then her grandpa died. Mm-hmm. And it all wound up in her 1,400 square foot house. And her husband, there are sofa cushions that get more wound up than him. He's just incredibly chill. And so he could live in this hallway through boxes thing would not be a big deal. But they were also trying to start a family. She had 3 estates to go through, and they're trying to start a family, and they have not a lot of room to walk or put anything. So she really couldn't go through the stuff for a number of reasons. So in her mind, in her place, her priority was get a larger home, a 20, 30-year home that had enough space that they could work through all the emotional, all the physical stuff that came with these estates and start the family on the time frame that they were hoping to. Right. She had a lot of medical conditions that made it to where she had kind of a narrow window of possibly starting a family. And so she made it happen, and it did cause some problems because they couldn't afford to keep both houses, and the other house needed a lot of work, and neither her or her husband really knew how to do that kind of work or had the time being the biggest one for them. And I want to just kind of make you guys think about that. If you're even thinking about selling, this is a fabulous time to sell. But I want to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. If it's just time, everything's lined up, and you've been wanting to move, what you've been looking for is out there, cool, go do it. But you got to make sure it's also financially responsible for you. It might be better if you are going based off the want system, you will have if you're just moving because you want to, it usually has a wider time frame. More time to save, more time to look for the right property, more time to find what you actually want in a house. I've moved 4 times since I've been married. And every house we're like, this is it. And then like 1 month into it, I'm like, okay, I didn't realize there was not a single closet in this house. All my coats, all my board games have to go on shelves or in my actual personal closet. And these are things that you sometimes don't know until you're having to think about it.
Right.
But that's in the want category. I think we need to focus a little bit more on the need category. For instance, family. Do you need a mother-in-law plan because your mom, your dad, your favorite aunt are getting up in years?
Or your college student might need to come back home after college.
If you just need more room or a different layout to better accommodate your needs, if something happens and your father-in-law needs to move in with you and you don't normally get along with him, you might want to think about a floor plan that's copacetic for that. Or if you love where you're at, figuring out what options you need to do so you can add an apartment to your barn or a little handyman shed. Now every city's got different rules on that. That's why you do your research and figure out what your options are. So I'm not saying you can just automatically put a shed in your yard and have someone live in it. That's not a good idea. Check with your city first, but picking what are real needs, such as relative, or even helping other people understand if it's their time to move, such as elderly relatives, teenagers starting out on their own, what criteria to be looking for, what is a need. Right on cue. And I could talk a long time about this because...
But understand, sometimes there's situations where it's not feasible to get everything you need in a house even without custom building, let alone what you need and what. Sometimes you luck out, sometimes you don't. So I like to talk to my people and have them prioritize. What's your first and top need? What's your second top need? Do you have to have 2 no matter what? Let's say they're handicapped or, you know, they can't do stairs very well just because they're older or whatever it
You
needs.
gotta know not only what the need is, but why it's a need. So that way, if you have to pick between 2 items, you can go, this one's for Nana, it is a higher priority. This one is for my son, he's not going to be needing that for a couple more years, lesser priority. And so getting your level priorities on what's an actual need and who's it, what that...
Sometimes your biggest need is location. You need to be close to your doctor. You need to be close to a hospital. You have to be within a certain mile of or a certain radius of your work because you're on call all the time or whatever the reason be. And that might be your main priority. Therefore, the house itself might not be as important as the location, maybe.
So location, also your budget. If you are moving laterally, where it's like $150,000 house to $150,000 house, it's not as many drastic. But if you're trying to go up and down, you got to make sure your budget
that can still
handle
vary
it.
from state to state and location to
City to
location,
city.
city to city, even town to town. I mean, you
Tuttle
could,
the Mustang, dear God.
Or you could live out in this little area and you got to move into town, and what you could get here for 150 is way different than what you could get out there for 150. So even if you're making a budget wise, you're staying on the same budget, it might not guarantee you're going to get the same. You could get less of a house in that area for that same cost. You might get more. You never know.
And then you got to weigh what your priorities. There are relatives of mine that Mustang is it. But if something happened and they needed to have a mother-in-law plan or whatever, they would be okay with living in Tuttle because they know certain areas of Tuttle, they can get everything they're looking for, just not in the city they prefer, but close enough that they have a grand percentage of those benefits. And so picking your scale, figuring out your level, there's a ton of things we can go over, but that's exactly why we suggest you talk to your realtor, even if you think you're whiles off from buying, because then we can help you ask those questions.
Right.
You're a game board collector. Okay. Maybe you should be thinking about houses that have ample storage. more closet space. Maybe places that have allow you to build a building so you can have a little room for your game nights alongside your whatever other hobbies they may be, or are you allowed to shorten your garage, things like that. We are here to help you think of these more commonly forgotten questions.
I've known people that needed a house right off a snow route. That's one thing to think about. When it snows or there's bad weather, each city, county has a snow route. Not all roads get done.
Yep.
So you can always find that on the city or town's website, county website will show you snow routes. And so they're either police, first responder, whatever reason, so they need to be within a certain area so it's easy for them to get to that snowplow route to get into work because they're required to be to work.
I had a client that was a single female, always had a little car, not comfortable driving in the snow. So she wanted, wherever she lived, it was a minimal risk that she couldn't get to work. She was looking for ones with less trees, maybe a little bit more space, all these little things. But she knew she did not do snow. She didn't want to put chains on her tire. She didn't want to gamble. She does not like cold. She just wants to go to work and do it as safely as she could. It was important enough to her that the snow route was a big deal. It just...
Lots to think about.
Lots to think about. Get with your realtor and your lender and start figuring it out.
Make sure you can be approved first. That's more important.
Now, if it's like a long-term goal, like 5 years, I want to look for the perfect land so I can start building my house and have it done by the 10-year mark. You can start talking to your realtor there, and so you can start figuring out the ideas, and they can kind of keep a loose idea of what land prices are and things like that. But if it's a very advantageous or maybe possibly extremely out of your budget goal, you would talk to a lender then so you can figure out how to get to that goal.
If you're 5 years out, you might still talk to a lender to see about the loan options if you're doing land. You know, let's say you're going to do land and you are going to have some livestock and it meets the requirement for a USDA loan. Or whatever.
And loan types vary.
Yes.
They update them. The new semi-loan types come out from time to time. So even if it's a long-term goal, if you've got a relationship with a realtor and a lender, they can go, you were looking for X, Y, and Z. This new loan type came out. I do not know if it's going to be here this time next year. Let's see if we can make that happen this year because I think it'll be beneficial to you. And again, you have the call on whether you jump on it or not. But if you don't have that conversation with your lender in advance, they don't know what to keep an eye out for.
Or talking to a lender, building versus just going out and buying an already built house. You know, building isn't always the best way to go necessarily. Construction loans, and there's all kinds of stuff a lender can talk to you about because there's a few different processes than just getting pre-approved and go find and land in a house.
And so many variables, like if you're self-employed, some lenders require a minimum of 2 years showing notable level profit. Some have a better tolerance, for lack of better wording, for the self-employed up and downs. And so now's the time that if you got long-term or even short-term, talk to lenders, find which one's the best fit for your type of business, for whatever your goals are, down payment assistance, rural development loans, USDA, which is country land or farther away from the main metropolis, and just so many things that getting with the right people early on can help you narrow in and be like, okay, this is what I'm looking for, which one's first, which one's second, and this is when I'm hoping to achieve it.
All right, we'll let you guys go.
I talk too much, but it was nice talking with you guys. I hope you guys stay safe out there in the weather. But in the meantime, I'm Christine, and this is Erin with WRME Live, where we do real life